A cold knife pressed against my throat, the smell of rusty metal rushing into my nose, combined with the foul breath of the man behind me. I felt my chest tighten, my heart pounding as if trying to jump out of my rib cage. My eyes were tightly shut, hot tears rolling down my cheeks, mixing with dirt and absolute terror. Is this the end? My short, sorrowful life? Will it end in this dark, cold alleyway, amidst the mournful wail of the night wind and the rancid smell of a New York sewer? I felt despair, powerlessness, my body trembling incessantly, so much so that even my legs couldn't stand firm. I am just Adeline Reed, an ordinary girl, but why was I dragged into this death spiral? I tried to breathe, but my lungs felt frozen. The air choked in my throat. The disgusting sneer of the man, he was savoring my fear. He was tasting victory over the weakness of his prey. He tightened the knife. A thin streak of blood began to seep from my flesh, soaking my collar. I could feel the sharp blade cutting deep into my vein. I imagined the scene of blood spurting, the intense pain. I had mentally prepared myself for death. But then, something unbelievable happened. A shadow flashed by like a whirlwind, so fast I couldn't keep up. A dry, sharp sound rang out, followed by a choked groan. The knife left my neck. The chilling coldness vanished. I opened my eyes, my pupils dilated in the darkness, just in time to see the bulky figure of the knife-wielding man collapsing to the ground, the metal clattering on the cold stone floor, creating a deafening sound. A tall, majestic figure appeared before my eyes, completely obscuring the faint light from the distant street lamp. The person stood there, towering, like a god of darkness just descended. Not a single word, not a single superfluous movement, just the pure presence of power. This person bent down, picked up the fallen knife, the blade reflecting the cold moonlight chillingly. I couldn't clearly see his face, only the deep blue eyes of my savior flashing in the darkness, sharp as a razor and cold as ice, yet possessing a strange allure, so much so that I couldn't look away. A scent of sandalwood and expensive cigarettes wafted through the air, overriding the stench of the alley, carrying a threat but also an irresistible attraction. That man, with his tall stature and elegant black suit, standing amidst the pool of blood and the writhing men on the ground, was nothing short of a monster from hell. Yet for me, he was the only light. He was a dark king, ruling the underworld, and I was just a pawn trapped in this game of life and death. He saved me, but in return, I felt like I had just fallen into a gilded cage, a cage created by his own darkness and power. 3 days ago. My life, Adeline Reed's, has never been a gentle symphony, but rather a mournful blues, sounding the low notes of deprivation and loss. I lived in a dilapidated tenement apartment on the edge of Brooklyn, where the sunlight seemed hesitant to sneak in. Peeling walls, old furniture, and the characteristic musty smell of forgotten homes. Every day, I worked tirelessly at a small coffee shop, making rich lattes for the wealthy people I would never become. My life was an endless loop of struggling, of small dreams buried by the burden of making ends meet. My brother, Daniel, was the only light in that gloomy life. He was 5 years older than me, with a radiant smile and eyes that always shone with optimism, even though there was nothing to be optimistic about in our lives. He was the only one who believed in me, the only one who encouraged me to draw, even though I only painted sad, somber pictures. He always said, "Addie, you have talent. Never give up." His voice was warm, like a piece of music soothing my soul whenever I felt tired. He was my pillar, my hero. Then a call came, like a clap of thunder, tearing apart the peaceful night in my life. The police officer's voice was cold, emotionless, announcing that my brother was dead. Daniel Reed, found at an abandoned warehouse. Appears to be a case of homicide. The word homicide echoed in my head, jolting me like an electric shock. My whole world collapsed at my feet. He couldn't be dead. He couldn't leave me alone in this cruel world. My tears streamed down, soaking my pillow, soaking the small hopes I once had. I couldn't accept it. Daniel never held a grudge against anyone. He was kind-hearted, always trying to help people. But the police concluded that my brother was involved with a small criminal gang, and his death was a debt settlement. He was a gambling addict, Ms. Reed, the officer said, his voice full of contempt, as if my brother were just a bug. Your brother has been involved in trouble for a long time. I didn't believe it. Daniel wasn't like that. He might have been in debt, but never a gang member. I knew something was wrong. Some dark secret was being concealed. The pain of losing my brother and the indignation at the unjust accusation turned into a smoldering fire in my chest, urging me to find the truth. I started my own investigation, following Daniel's tracks. The places he frequented, the people he met. I rummaged through his messy room, looking for any clues. I found a small, crumpled notebook, inside which were recorded debts and strange names. One name repeatedly appeared, underlined and marked in red ink. The Obsidian Club. I had never heard of it, but a chill ran down my spine when I read the name. Through fragmented clues, whispers in the dark corners of a shabby bar, I traced my way to an abandoned industrial area on the city's edge. This place was the embodiment of the contrast between the extravagant, splendid world and the dark underworld I was entering. Sparkling skyscrapers with brilliant neon lights not far away, symbols of wealth and power, where those with money could do whatever they wanted. And where I stood was a labyrinth of old warehouses, dirty alleyways, where light could never reach, where the darkest secrets were buried, where illicit transactions took place, where dreams were crushed and lives were taken mercilessly. I could feel the danger lurking in every shadow, in every tiny sound. An old warehouse, with a rusty iron door and broken glass panes, caught my attention. This was where Daniel was found. The smell of dry blood and the chilling coldness still lingered in the air. I stepped in, my heart pounding. The faint light from a gap in the roof illuminated a small corner, revealing dark bloodstains on the concrete floor. Fear enveloped me, but the will to find the truth was stronger than anything. I rummaged, searching hopelessly, trying to piece together the scattered fragments in my mind. I noticed a small crowbar mark on the floor, hidden under a wooden plank. Beneath it was an old metal box, inside which contained a cassette tape and a handwritten letter. The letter had only one line. Julian Blackwood knows everything. That's when I knew I had found something important, something that could expose the truth behind my brother's death. But it was also at that moment that a large shadow fell over me from behind. A rough hand covered my mouth, pulling me up roughly. What is this? Little rat? What are you rummaging for here? The voice was hoarse, full of menace. I struggled, trying to scream, but in vain. He was a huge man, with bloodshot eyes and a strong smell of alcohol. He dragged me out of the warehouse, shoving me into the dark alley, where fate awaited me. There were 3 of them. 3 big men, with hungry eyes and disgusting smiles. They cornered me against the wall, cutting off all escape routes. You seem to know too much, little girl, one of them said, stroking my face with his dirty fingers. Julian Blackwood is a name you shouldn't mention. I didn't understand. Who is Julian Blackwood? How is he related to my brother, and why is he a forbidden name? Curiosity and fear mixed, forming a whirlwind in my mind. I felt disgusted, helpless, like a rag doll in the hands of tyrants. One guy pulled out a knife, the blade glistening under the dim light. Who are you going to tell what you know? He pressed the knife to my throat, a cruel sneer on his face. Do you think you can survive after digging into our world? He tightened his grip. A thin streak of blood began to flow. I could feel the pain, the coldness of the blade cutting into my skin. At that moment, I truly thought I was dead. Until he appeared. A tall silhouette suddenly appeared at the end of the alley, as if stepping out of the shadows. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I felt the majestic, cold aura emanating from him. His footsteps were light, yet carried an invisible weight, forcing the 3 men surrounding me to freeze. Their eyes shifted from arrogance to fear, a deep, primal fear. Leave her alone. A low, deep voice rang out, cold and decisive like a command. The voice didn't need to be loud, yet it had the power to penetrate to the bone marrow, making the very air solidify. I had never heard a voice like that. It was both deadly and strangely beautiful. The three men stared at the newcomer, their faces hesitant. One stammered, "Blackwood." "What are you doing here?" "Blackwood." That name. Julian Blackwood. The man didn't answer. He just took a slow, elegant step, like a hunting panther. His hand, long and powerful, slowly reached out. A flash of light. A silenced gun appeared in his hand like magic. With a movement as fast as lightning, he aimed straight at one man. A dry thwack sound rang out. The man collapsed to the ground, eyes wide open, blood pooling on the stone floor. Not a scream, just a deadly silence. The other two were completely shocked. They looked at each other, then at the cold man standing there, without a single expression on his face. I was also shocked. I had never witnessed such a horrifying scene. He just killed someone. He is a murderer. But he was saving me. Whoever touches what is mine will pay the price. His voice was still cold, but with an added sharpness, like a blade that had just cut a rope. "You are not allowed to touch my flame." He stepped forward, each step crushing life. The other two quickly drew their knives, lunging at him like mad dogs. But they were too slow. Julian Blackwood was a master of controlled chaos. He moved like a ghost, dodging the stabs with ease, then counterattacking with unimaginable strength and speed. A sweeping kick, a precise punch. Bones broke, groans rang out. In less than 30 seconds, all three men were sprawled on the ground, no longer able to resist. One was clutching his broken leg, another was bleeding profusely from his head, the last one was struggling to breathe. He turned back, his deep blue eyes locked onto mine. That gaze pierced my soul, making me feel exposed, weak. There was no pity, no warmth, only something primal, brutal, yet giving me a strange sense of safety. It was the safety of a marked prey, protected by its owner. "You." "Addie," he said, my name sounding foreign yet strangely familiar coming from his mouth. He bent down, picking up the cassette tape and the letter I had dropped, glancing at the line, "Julian Blackwood knows everything." A cold, emotionless sneer formed on his lips. "It seems fate has brought you to me." He held out his hand, not to help me stand up, but to assert ownership. His hand was large, strong, with long, slender fingers. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to run away, to escape the darkness he brought. But the other part, the one paralyzed by extreme fear, craved the protection he had offered. I placed my trembling hand in his. His skin was ice cold, yet carried a magical attraction. He pulled me up, without a word, without a sympathetic look. He just looked at me, his eyes seemingly scanning every corner of my soul, discovering every smallest secret. I felt I had no choice but to follow him, to follow this darkness. A sleek black car, one of the most luxurious models, was parked at the end of the alley, its engine purring softly like a beast waiting for its prey. It was too opulent, too noticeable compared to the surrounding wreckage. This contrast further highlighted the distance between wealth and poverty, light and darkness, between him and me. I was just a girl living in Brooklyn, and he seemed to be the owner of this entire city. He opened the car door, a smell of high-grade leather and luxury rushed into my nose. I reluctantly stepped in, feeling like I was entering another world, a world I never imagined I would belong to. He got into the driver's seat and started the car. The car glided smoothly, leaving behind the dark alley, the bodies, and the stench of blood. I turned back, only to see the darkness swallowing everything. Where was I? Where was I going? And what were the intentions of this savior, this man who had just murdered someone right before my eyes? "You are mine now, Adeline Reed," his voice echoed in the darkness, without a shadow of a doubt. And no one, absolutely no one, can touch what belongs to me. And I wondered, was that a promise? Or a sentence? I was Adeline Reed, the one who had escaped the knife of death, only to fall into the arms of a man whom even my brother had to mention in secret. He was a dark king, and I was now a hostage in his kingdom. I felt disgusted with myself, because a small part of me had begun to be attracted by his brutality and power. The one who saved me might also be the one who would destroy me. Who was Julian Blackwood, and why did he say I was his? The smell of antiseptic, the scent of sandalwood, and some other luxurious, unidentifiable fragrance filled the air. I woke up in a room I had never seen in my life, not even in a magazine. The ceiling was soaring, decorated with intricate classical lines. Soft light from a crystal chandelier shone down on the silver-gray wool carpet, soft as velvet. A king-size bed, with immaculate white silk sheets, was so comfortable I thought I was floating on clouds. There were no stains, no musty smells, only overwhelming purity and luxury. The frosted glass bathroom door was slightly ajar, revealing a large space with a marble bathtub and a large mirror. It was a complete contrast to my dilapidated apartment, to the poor life I was accustomed to. I felt like I had stumbled into another world, a fantastic dream. An elderly woman, wearing a clean white uniform, was sitting next to the bed. She smiled kindly when she saw me open my eyes. "Ms. Reed, you're awake. The shock is over." She placed her hand on my forehead, checking my temperature. "Mr. Blackwood instructed me to take good care of you." Her voice was gentle, warm, completely different from what I had experienced last night. She helped me sit up and brought a hot cup of herbal tea. I felt my throat was dry, but still sore. I reached up to my neck, feeling the white bandage. "Julian Blackwood. Where is he?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "He's in his office, miss. He said he would see you after you've recovered." I nodded, trying to drink the tea. I couldn't stop thinking about him, about what he did last night. He was a murderer. I saw it with my own eyes. But he was also the one who saved my life. This contradiction tore at my mind, leaving me restless. I feared him, but at the same time, I felt a strange sense of safety being in his world. After showering and changing into a soft silk nightgown that the woman had prepared, I waited. This waiting feeling was both tense and curious. I wanted to know who he was, what he wanted from me, and why he was involved with my brother. When the room door opened, Julian Blackwood walked in, as if he had read my thoughts. He wasn't wearing this powerful black suit from last night, but instead a black silk shirt and matching trousers, further highlighting his tall stature and muscles hidden beneath the fabric. His characteristic sandalwood scent wafted again, stronger, more haunting. He walked slowly, his sharp gaze sweeping the room and then settling on my face. His eyes were still cold as ice, still devoid of any emotion, but I could feel a special attention he gave me. "You're awake, Adeline." His voice was low, echoing in the quiet space. He stood opposite me, hands in his pockets, like a king looking down at his subjects. "You seem to have caused quite a bit of trouble." I curled up on the bed, trying to appear strong. "Who are you? And why do you have that letter? How are you related to my brother's death?" I questioned him rapidly, despite the fear. A sneer flickered across his lips, a smile hiding many secrets. "I am Julian Blackwood. As for your brother, Daniel Reed, he owed me a lot." My heart constricted. "Owed you?" Daniel didn't mention owing anyone, other than a few small amounts. "Small amounts?" "No, Adeline. Your brother was involved in a large deal. A deal he couldn't afford to pay." He took out the metal box I had found, placing it on the coffee table. "This belonged to your brother. Or rather, this is what he hid." He opened the box, taking out the cassette tape and the letter. "I need you to decipher it. You are his only relative. Maybe you'll recognize something." I stared at the box. Julian Blackwood, the man involved in Daniel's death, was asking me to cooperate with him? Did you kill my brother? I asked, my voice trembling, tears welling up. He looked at me, his gaze unwavering. I didn't do it directly, but I can say that he brought his death upon himself. He broke an important rule in my world, and the consequence was inevitable. He paused, his deep ocean blue eyes looking straight into mine. I don't care about his death. I only care about what he stole from me, and the trouble he caused. Then why did you save me? I couldn't contain my indignation. If you don't care, then why? Because you are part of the puzzle. You seem to be the only one who can help me find what I need. And I couldn't let those wild dogs harm my property. He repeated the word my, slowly, powerfully, emphasizing that I now belonged to him. Furthermore, there is something about you that makes me want to protect you. His words were both terrifying and strangely gentle. I was horrified, but at the same time, I felt an inexplicable tremor. He was the one who destroyed my family, but he was also the one sheltering me from danger. In the following days, I lived in Julian Blackwood's mansion. It was a castle of glass and steel, situated on a hill with a panoramic view of the entire New York City, a symbol of his ultimate power. Everything was perfectly arranged, from the expensive artwork on the walls to the custom-designed furniture. Here, I felt like a bird caged in gold, a luxurious hostage. But I also gradually understood Julian Blackwood's world. He wasn't just a simple gang boss. He was an underground financial magnate, a manipulator of the black market, a ghost controlling the strings of power. He was a lone wolf, yet he had a massive empire. He asked me to decipher the cassette tape in Daniel's letter. I listened to the tape. It was fragmented recordings, whispers, numbers, names. I read the letter, trying to find a bit of familiarity. Every time I found a small clue, Julian listened attentively, his deep blue eyes following my every gesture. He was a mysterious man, with long silences, sometimes just sitting and watching me, as if reading my innermost thoughts. There were moments when he showed unexpected gentleness. One evening, as I was trying to decode a complicated sequence, I accidentally spilled a cup of hot coffee on my hand. I winced in pain. Immediately, Julian appeared. He didn't scold, he didn't hesitate. He took my hand, his cold but very gentle hands. He carefully applied ointment to my burn, his eyes focused, as if it were the most important thing in the world. I felt his warm breath on my hand. "Be more careful, Adeline," he said softly, his voice a little warmer than usual. "I don't want to see any injuries on my person." Again, the word my. That possessiveness was both terrifying and made me feel protected. Another time, I was sitting alone in the large living room, feeling lonely and lost. Thoughts of Daniel, of his death, of the dark truth overshadowing me, made me feel suffocated. I remembered the classical music Daniel used to play when we were little, melodies that soothed my soul. Just then, a gentle piano piece played from Julian's office, a sad yet utterly captivating melody. It was a Chopin nocturne. I was surprised. Could Julian Blackwood, that cold-blooded man, enjoy such a gentle, emotional piece of music? I stood up, walking closer to his office door. He was sitting in front of a grand piano, his long, slender fingers moving skillfully over the keys. His face was bathed in the dim light, his features becoming softer, less harsh. He didn't notice me standing there, listening to every note. I stood there, silently, captivated by a completely different aspect of him. He was a murderer, but he was also an artist. A demon who knew how to play music. Another evening, we were having dinner together in his luxurious dining room. The meal was sumptuous, with elaborate dishes served by silent staff. Julian sat across from me, eating in silence. I felt the atmosphere was slightly awkward. He suddenly asked, "Do you like this dish, Adeline?" I nodded, surprised he had broken the silence. The chef prepared it according to your preference. I asked them to find out. Again, unexpected concern from a cold person. What was he trying to do? I wondered. Was he trying to manipulate me, or was he genuinely concerned about me? However, those moments of gentleness couldn't make me forget the dark truth about him. My investigation continued, and I began to doubt what Julian had told me. One day, when Julian was absent for an important meeting, I decided to explore the mansion. He was always very cautious, but I had noticed a room at the end of the third-floor hallway, always locked. My curiosity had piqued. I found a spare key hidden under a potted plant. My heart pounded as I put the key into the lock. The door opened, revealing a dark, cold room. The smell of old paper and cigarettes rushed into my nose. Unlike other rooms in the mansion, this one didn't look luxurious. It looked like a secret office, with metal filing cabinets, a dark wooden desk piled high with papers. I turned on the light. The weak yellow light shone on stacks of documents. I started rummaging, trying to find anything related to Daniel. Then I found it. A thick folder, labeled Daniel Reed on the cover. My hand trembled as I opened it. Inside were rows of papers, bills, contracts, and photos. Photos of Daniel in various places, with various people. I skimmed through, then my eyes stopped at one picture. It was a picture of Daniel standing next to a man. That man was Julian Blackwood himself. He was standing there, his arm around Daniel's shoulder, wearing a smile I had never seen on his face, a radiant, intimate smile. This picture didn't look like the debtor-creditor relationship he had described. They looked like close friends, or partners. And not only that. Behind them, I recognized a face. A man I had met when I was a child. He was Mr. Albright, our old neighbor, a kind man who always gave me candy. But he had disappeared years ago. In the file, there was a report about his disappearance, marked as resolved. And next to it, there was another document, a bank statement with a large sum of money transferred to Daniel's account, and the sender was Julian Blackwood. A shocking truth suddenly exploded in my mind, like a clap of thunder. Julian Blackwood was not just Daniel's creditor. He and Daniel had a deeper relationship, a secret connection, and that large sum of money. Why did Daniel receive it? And why did Mr. Albright disappear? I flipped through a few more pages, and my heart seemed to stop. I found a detailed report of a murder case that happened 5 years ago. The victim was a woman and her young child, brutally murdered in a robbery. And the main suspect, the man who was caught and imprisoned, was someone Daniel had known. But what made me numb was, in that report, there was a handwritten note in a familiar script, Julian's handwriting. Find the real mastermind. Protect the witness. And next to it was a blurred photo of the unfortunate woman, whose face resembled mine surprisingly. The hair, the eyes, even the small mole on her cheek. It was as if I was looking at an image of my past self. My mind reeled. The truth was not simply that Daniel was in debt. It was that Daniel might have been working for Julian. Or worse, they worked together. And Daniel's death was not a typical debt settlement, but part of a larger conspiracy related to the murder case 5 years ago, the murder case where the woman in the photo looked exactly like me. Julian was not just a financial magnate. He was an underground detective, a hunter of justice in his own way. And Daniel might have been his inside man. I stood there, my hand trembling, holding the file, feeling disgusted with myself. The man who saved me, the one I had started to feel a forbidden attraction to, was directly involved in my brother's death, and possibly another horrific murder. He said he didn't directly kill Daniel, but he knew the truth, and he hid it. He said Daniel brought his death upon himself, but in this file, I saw Daniel was part of his plan. The familiar scent of sandalwood suddenly rushed into my nose. I turned around sharply. Julian Blackwood was standing at the threshold, his deep blue eyes now darkened, deep as an abyss. He said nothing, just stood there, looking at me. I sensed the latent anger, a storm about to erupt. "Did you find it, Adeline?" His voice was low, colder than ever. "My secret." He stepped into the room, the door automatically shutting behind him, as if trapping us in a separate world, a world of secrets and betrayal. His eyes were locked onto the file in my hand, then looked straight into my eyes, without a single blink. I swallowed hard, feeling my throat dry. I wanted to scream, to ask him 1,000 questions, but I couldn't. I could only stand there, confronting the terrifying truth, confronting the man who saved me but also the one who ruined my life. Was he my hero, or was he the devil? This secret. Would it kill me? Or had it already killed my heart? Julian Blackwood was a shadow I had stepped into, and now I didn't know if I could ever get out. The air in the room solidified, heavy with secrets and betrayal. I felt suffocated, unable to utter a word. Julian's gaze, now, was no longer the usual coldness, but a terrifying combination of anger, disappointment, and a hint of something like hurt, however fleeting. I had discovered him. I had seen through a part of his true nature. "You lied to me," I blurted out, my voice trembling, tears streaming down. "You said Daniel brought his death upon himself. You said you didn't care. But you and he worked together. He helped you. And the woman in the photo, she looks exactly like me." He stepped closer, each of his footsteps like a hammer pounding on my chest. He stopped right in front of me, tall, majestic, completely obscuring the light. He reached out, gently took the file from my hand, and placed it back on the table, his movement decisive. "You found too much, Adeline," he said, his voice low, cold, but not as furious as I expected. "I didn't lie. I said Daniel was a part of my world, and he brought his death upon himself. He broke the rules." "What rules?" I countered, the fear gradually giving way to anger. "The rules he died for?" His eyes locked onto mine again. Daniel was an informer for me. He had special skills in gathering information from those I didn't want to expose myself to. He did good work until he started making stupid decisions for money. He paused, looking straight into my eyes, as if wanting me to understand. He took something that didn't belong to him, something I had spent a lot of effort to find. And that's why he had to pay the price. "What was it?" I asked. "It's none of your business." He shook his head. "And about the woman in the photo? She is someone I failed to protect. A woman and her young child were brutally murdered by a sick individual. I've been pursuing that case for 5 years. Daniel helped me find a crucial lead. But then, he was discovered. And he did the most foolish thing, trying to finish the job himself, to get the reward." He looked at me, his gaze complex. "You look like her. Very much. That's why I couldn't let you die in that alley. That's why you became my property. I won't let history repeat itself." His confession, though cold and brutal, carried a terrifying truth. He didn't use flowery words. He didn't make excuses. He just told the truth in his own way. He admitted his involvement in Daniel's death, but not because of personal hatred, but because of a rule in his world, a world I couldn't fully comprehend. And he saved me, not out of love or pity, but because of an obsession with that woman, an obsession with a past failure he wanted to rectify. I was a substitute, a possession for him to atone for. That was both painful and made me hate myself for being drawn to that complexity. As I was still immersed in chaotic thoughts, a phone rang, shattering the tension in the room. Julian raised his hand to his ear, listening intently. His face darkened, his blue eyes turning cold as ice. "They found you," he said, his voice no longer calm, but instead cold, deadly. "Who?" I asked, my heart pounding. "The people who were looking to kill your brother. The ones who hired the thugs to attack you in the alley. He turned to look at me, his eyes like a bolt of lightning. They know you're here. They want what Daniel stole from me, and they think you're the key. Immediately, a loud explosion shook the entire mansion. Window glass shattered, fragments flying everywhere. Gunshots rang out incessantly, screams from outside. Julian Blackwood was a powerful magnate, but it seemed his enemies were just as formidable. The threat was no longer an abstract concept. It had reached me. It had exploded right before my eyes, in the very place I thought was the safest. Julian grabbed my hand, pulling me to my feet decisively. His hand was strong, firm, yet it didn't hurt me. Follow me, Adeline. Don't leave my sight. He led me out of the room, through the long hallway, where gunshots and footsteps were getting closer and closer. He moved as fast as a panther, his body taut, ready to fight. We reached a secret room, hidden behind a false wall. He pushed me inside, then turned back to face the door. Stay here, he commanded, his voice cold, deadly, yet carrying an absolute protection. Don't make any noise. I will come back for you. He pulled out 2 guns, his movements practiced, swift. He transformed into a fighting machine, without a moment of hesitation. I looked at him, extreme fear suffocating me, but also a sense of amazement, a strange admiration. He was wicked, a murderer, but he was also a warrior, a protector. The gunshots outside became more intense. The sound of breaking glass, crashing furniture, painful screams. I heard Julian roar, a growl of anger, of a beast protecting its territory. I heard his gunshots, each one precise, cold. He was fighting for me. He was fighting for his property. I huddled in the dark corner, trying not to make any sound. My heart beat like a drum. I could smell the gunpowder, the faint scent of blood in the air. I closed my eyes, trying to ward off the horrifying images flashing in my mind. Suddenly, the noise subsided. The gunshots became sparse, then stopped completely. A frightening silence enveloped the space, leaving only my panting and the pounding of my own heart. What happened? Did he win, or did he... The secret door suddenly opened. Julian stood there, his body covered in blood, but not his own blood. His black silk shirt was torn in a few places, revealing a long scratch on his shoulder. His face was smudged with dirt and a little blood, but his deep blue eyes were still sharp, full of power. He was panting, but still standing firm, like a solid fortress wall. He had won. He had protected me. He stepped into the room, the door closing behind him again. I looked at him, both horrified and captivated. He was a monster, but he was my monster. He came closer to me, his eyes sweeping over me, checking if I was hurt. He touched my cheek, his finger stained with a little blood. Are you all right, Adeline? His voice was softer, with a hint of concern. No one is allowed to touch you. I nodded, unable to speak. He pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly. I felt his strength, the smell of blood and gunpowder mixed with his characteristic sandalwood scent. I trembled, but I didn't want to leave that embrace. It was an embrace both terrifying and safe. He held me so tight, as if wanting to crush me into his body, wanting to dissolve me into his darkness. You are mine, Adeline, he said, his voice whispering in my ear, full of possessiveness, full of obsession. My flame, my breath, my darkness. From now on, you belong to me. And I won't let anyone steal you from me. He lifted his head, looking straight into my eyes, his deep blue eyes containing a fierce fire I had never seen before. He leaned down, his lips meeting mine. An intense, rough, yet passionate kiss. That kiss was both an assertion of ownership, a reassurance, and a warning. He wanted me to know that I belonged to him, that I had no other choice but to stay with him, in his darkness. I closed my eyes, feeling the intensity of his kiss. I was disgusted with myself, disgusted with the attraction I felt for this man. The one who killed my brother, yet saved me, protected me at all costs. This man, Julian Blackwood, was a dark mystery, and I had been dragged deep into his quagmire. The kiss lasted until I felt myself melting in his arms. When he released me, his eyes were still locked onto mine. "You are mine, Adeline, forever." He said I was his flame. But I feared that I was also his prey. And in that moment, I didn't know if I should be horrified or accept my fate. The great threat had been extinguished, but another, deeper threat had begun to ignite in my heart. The smell of sandalwood, dry blood, and gunpowder blended together, creating a haunting fragrance, etched into my mind. Julian Blackwood, that powerful and invincible man, was now lying on the black leather sofa in the secret room, his breathing heavy, every muscle taut with pain. The scratch on his shoulder was no longer a small scratch, but had turned into a deep wound, bleeding. Blood seeped through the torn fabric of his shirt, forming a dark red streak on his pale skin. He didn't groan, he didn't complain, he just closed his eyes, his jaw clenched, trying to endure the pain. He was a warrior, but even a warrior has his limits. I knelt beside him, my heart constricting when I saw him in this weakened state. The fear and disgust I felt for him were still there, but now, a strange worry, a strange concern, crept in. He was injured because of me, because he protected me. You're badly hurt, I said, my voice trembling. Let me help you. He opened his eyes, his deep blue eyes still sharp, but slightly glazed over with exhaustion. No need. His voice was hoarse. I'm used to it. No, I insisted. That's not right. You need treatment. I stood up, looking for the medicine cabinet. Fortunately, in this secret room, he had everything prepared. I grabbed cotton pads, antiseptic, and painkillers. I turned back, gently lifting his shirt, revealing the wound. It was deeper than I thought, and the blood was still seeping out. Julian let out a small hiss when I touched the wound, but he didn't resist. I used a cotton ball soaked in antiseptic, carefully cleaning his wound. He exhaled heavily, each breath labored. I could feel the warmth radiating from his body and the sharp smell of fresh blood. I worked meticulously, focused, forgetting everything around me. I just wanted him to hurt less, just wanted this wound to heal. You're very careful, he said softly, his eyes following my every move. Daniel also used to say you had skillful hands. The name Daniel rang out, like a knife cutting into my heart. I paused, my eyes stinging with tears. Daniel, my brother, the one who died, the one this Julian was involved with. He was my brother, I said, my voice catching. And you are the one who indirectly killed him. Julian closed his eyes, a painful sneer appearing on his lips. The truth is always hard to accept, Adeline. Your brother bet too high. And he lost. But you took advantage of him. I couldn't contain my indignation. You dragged him into your world. I didn't force him. He wanted money. He wanted power. He saw what I had, and he wanted a part of it. He willingly walked through this door. His voice was low, but full of harsh truth. And I gave him a chance. But he broke it. I bandaged his wound decisively. The internal conflict in me erupted. I hated him for what he did to Daniel. I hated him for being a murderer. But I also couldn't deny that he saved me, protected me, and in these moments, when he was weak, I felt a strange bond, an urge to take care of him. You are a monster, I whispered, not with fear, but with a painful acceptance. Julian opened his eyes, his gaze locked onto mine. Yes, I am a monster. But I am your monster, Adeline, and I won't let anyone harm you. He reached up, gently stroking my cheek. His finger was warm, and I felt a slight tremor. Do you think you can leave me? He asked, his voice low, haunting. Do you think you can escape my darkness? I looked at him, my eyes filled with tears. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run away from this world, from him, from all these secrets and violence. But an invisible thread was tying me down. Every time I tried to move away from him, I felt a stronger pull, drawing me closer to him, deeper into his darkness. I was obsessed with the attraction to this dangerous man. He was the poison, but I craved it. He was a danger, but he offered me absolute safety. This turmoil made me hurt, but it also made me feel alive, existing intensely. Why? I asked, my voice trembling. Why are you doing all of this? Why me? Julian sighed, a heavy breath. Because I failed once. With the girl in that photo. She looked like you. I was too late. I couldn't protect her. And her child. He paused, his eyes looking into the void, a deep pain evident on his face, a pain I had never seen before. I promised myself I would never let that happen again. I will never let an innocent woman, hurt, be swallowed by this world. He turned to look at me, his eyes full of resolve. You, Adeline, are my second chance. You are my atonement. I will protect you at all costs, even if you hate me, even if you want to leave me. His words touched a deep part of me. He wasn't an emotionless monster. He had obsessions, scars on his soul. He was hurt, and that pain had turned him into the man he was today. He protected me, not just because I was his property, but also because of a past pain, a promise he swore to keep. He broke the rules in his world to save me, to keep me by his side, because I had touched a deep vulnerability in him, a fear of loss. A phone rang again. This time, Julian winced. The real mastermind. He's exposed. His voice again became cold, deadly. He stood up, his body taut, his wounds still aching, but he didn't care. I will end this, Adeline. Forever. No. I grabbed his hand. You're hurt. You can't go. He turned back to look at me, a cold sneer. Do you think a small wound can stop me, Adeline? I promise to protect you, and I will keep that promise, no matter the cost. He leaned down, kissing my forehead gently, a kiss of farewell, of a promise. Don't be afraid. I will come back. Always. Then he left. The door shut, leaving me alone in the dark room. I sat there, my heart pounding, terrified. He was hurt. He was going to confront a bigger threat, a brutal mastermind, someone who might have killed Daniel. I was afraid, but I also felt an emotional explosion. He was the one who killed my brother, but he was also my protector. He was wicked, but he had a wounded heart. I loved him. I hated him. I feared him. I craved him. Time passed slowly, every second like a century. I heard distant gunshots, screams, then everything fell into a frightening silence. I imagined him fighting, the image of him covered in blood, breathing heavily, but still resolute. His love wasn't sweet words, but absolute violent acts, the sacrifice of his own body to protect me. His love was stronger than the fear he brought. In that moment, I understood. His love was not a rose, but a sword. And I was cut to the core by it, but also sheltered by it from all dangers. Silence enveloped the mansion, heavier and more frightening than any gunshot. I sat in the secret room for hours, like a statue. My heart pounded. Every small sound outside startled me. I had lost Daniel, and now I was at risk of losing Julian. The one who killed my brother, yet the one who saved my life, the one who had become an inseparable part of my life, whether I wanted it or not. I felt disgusted with myself for that, for being dragged deep into his darkness, fascinated by his brutality and power. Then the secret door opened. Faint light from the hallway crept in. Julian stood there, but not the Julian I knew. He stood straight, but his body was shaking, and he had to lean on the doorframe to keep his balance. Blood. Blood covered him, soaking his entire black shirt, forming terrifying streaks of fresh red. A large, deep wound on his side, where blood was gushing out nonstop. His face was pale, his deep blue eyes were glazed over, no longer sharp, but instead filled with extreme exhaustion, a resignation to fate. He looked like a fallen angel, a dark god who had just survived a brutal war and had lost a part of himself. "Julian!" I screamed, running to him. The fear of loss flared up in me, stronger than any disgust or anger. I grabbed his arm, feeling the warmth of the blood and the coldness of his skin. He smiled weakly, a painful smile. I said, "I would come back. Adeline." His voice was hoarse, weak, every word like a final breath. "The threat is neutralized. You are safe now." He collapsed, and I caught him. His body was heavy, and I felt life slowly leaving him. I pulled him into the room, placing him on the cold floor. The blood flowed non-stop, soaking my hands, my clothes. I tried to bandage his wound, but the blood kept pouring out, unable to be stopped. "No," I mumbled, my tears flowing like rain. You can't die." He took my hand, his hand cold, weak. He looked at me, his eyes gentler than ever, as if he was looking at me for the last time. "Adeline, I have atoned for her, for you." He paused, each breath labored. "I broke the rules for you. I love you. Adeline." The words "I love you" echoed in my head, tearing my heart apart. He, the murderer, the cold-blooded one, the one who only saw me as property, said he loved me. A tragic, forbidden love, born from blood and darkness. "Don't say that." "You'll be fine," I said, trying to be strong, trying to stop his bleeding. He smiled weakly, a serene smile. "No. Adeline, my time is over, but you will be free. You will have a life without my darkness." He reached up, touching my face, gently stroking my cheek. His finger was ice cold, but I still felt the love and sacrifice in that gesture. "You are my flame. Adeline, don't let it fade. Live for both of us." His eyes closed. His breathing weakened, then stopped completely. His hand went limp. I hugged him, hugging the cold body of the man who saved me, the man who killed my brother, the man who loved me with a dark and tragic love. I wailed, my cries echoing in the empty room, blending with the deadly silence. Julian Blackwood was dead. He died to protect me, to atone for his past, and to give me a free future. It was a tragic death, but also a peace. He found his tranquility in the arms of death, after a life full of violence and sin. Months later. New York City is still noisy and bustling, but for me, it has changed forever. I no longer live in the dilapidated apartment in Brooklyn, nor do I work at the small coffee shop anymore. Julian left me everything, an unimaginable empire, but I didn't touch any of it. Instead, I used the money he left behind to help abused women and children, the vulnerable people he was obsessed with, the people he tried to protect. I turned my pain and his sacrifice into a new meaning. I no longer draw sad paintings, but instead paintings full of hope, paintings of light breaking through the darkness. I occasionally return to Julian's old mansion, which has now become a museum of my memories. I sit in his office, where I discovered his dark secrets. I touch the piano he once played, the Chopin melodies still echoing in my mind. I feel his presence everywhere, a ghost, a haunting memory. The sun sets, the red light stretching across the horizon, painting a beautiful picture. I sit by the window, looking down at the city. The wind blows gently, carrying the faint scent of jasmine. The distant church bells ring out, like a farewell, a prayer for lost souls. I still remember his last kiss, the coldness of his hand, and his promise. I will always find you. Adeline. Always. Is he really dead? Or does his promise I will come back carry a deeper meaning? Sometimes, in the quiet late nights, I feel a gentle breeze passing by me, a faint scent of sandalwood, a feeling of being protected, enveloped. I wonder, is it Julian, still watching over me from somewhere? Or is it just an illusion of my heart, a heart that is eternally marked by that darkness, by Julian Blackwood? I don't know. I only know that my heart is eternally marked by that darkness. By Julian. He is a scar that will never heal, a mystery that will never be fully solved, a love that will never be fully accepted. He sacrificed himself to give me happiness, for the next generation, a future where I can freely choose. And I, Adeline Reed, will live this life to the fullest, carrying the memory of my dark hero, the one who made me stronger, someone who knows how to love and forgive, someone who will never forget the lessons he taught me in the dark.